that day clearly. I was standing in my bathroom, gripping the edge of the sink, and I forced myself to look into that mirror. I also remember how those strong, bright lights stung my eyes. Looking back, though, I was there to confront a different kind of pain that day. As my eyes adjusted, I looked up into the mirror again and I said, enough, enough now. Back then, while getting ready every day, I would stand to the side of that mirror. I was convinced that if I avoided that mirror, it would somehow protect me from everything I believed about myself. I had no idea that when I spoke those words, enough, enough now, it would set something in motion that eventually changed the course of my life. Have you ever experienced anything like this? Not liking what you see in the mirror? Or avoiding it altogether? That day when I spoke those words, it didn't magically fix anything for me. There was a lot of hard work ahead. What I didn't realize at the time was this: how we see ourselves isn't always about our appearance. It's about our value and our worth and our identity. And how we define each of those things for ourselves greatly influences the path our life takes without us even realizing it. How do I know this? Over the years, I've sat down with hundreds of people, counseling, coaching, mentoring them one-on-one. I've learned something that still hits me hard every time. Far too many of us avoid the mirror, not because of what we see in it, but because of what we believe about what we see in it. And most of us aren't even looking into a clean mirror anyway. We're staring at a reflection that's been blurred by years of other people's opinions and expectations. And even if we were to wipe all that away, we'd still have some very hard work in front of us. Changing what we believe about what we see. Because we cannot live beyond the way we see ourselves. And that's what influences the path your life takes. I'll show you what I mean. For too many years, I let other people define my worth and value. Opinions, media images, constant comparisons. I absorbed it all. But somewhere down deep, without even realizing it, I learned that I wasn't quiet enough, thin enough, pretty enough. Not enough in so many ways. At times, those beliefs crushed me. I remember a day when I literally fell to the floor and said, "Why am I not enough? Why am I so unlovable?" On the outside, it looked like I had it all together. But on the inside, I was screaming. Perhaps you carry around your own "I am not enough" story. I have learned that many of us do. Those beliefs shape how we see ourselves, and they subtly influence the choices we make for our lives. That day in front of the mirror started with awareness. I knew something had to change. I just didn't know what yet. So, how did I go from believing I am not enough to the changes I made? I will answer that question. But first, I'm going to tell you about Bob. Years ago, I volunteered in a prison. I mentored guys who are part of a 9-month program that's focused on learning how to make lasting changes in their lives. Prisons have that institutional feel, like schools and hospitals. Strong fluorescent lights, cold air, those heavy doors banging shut behind you. That's where I met Bob. Despite years of trying to change, he kept falling into the same patterns that would land him back in prison. Every week I was there, Bob would sit in the same hard plastic chair, shoulders slumped, never looking anyone in the eye every single week. And then one day something happened. Bob and I were standing face to face talking, and as usual, Bob was looking at the floor. Without thinking, I dropped to one knee. I looked up at Bob and said, "Bob, please look at me." And he said, "No, no." And then his tone changed. "I am not worth being seen by anyone." I can still feel those words today. He had no self-worth. No wonder he couldn't look anyone in the eye. As I knelt there, all I could think to say was, "Bob, you are worth it." But I knew my words wouldn't be enough to convince him of his worth. But I figured my actions might. So week after week, I kept showing up for Bob and the others. That kind of consistency has a way of showing someone that they matter. When you treat someone in such a way that it helps them see their own worth, it also helps them to change how they see themselves. And that's what happened to Bob. His changes weren't instant, but over time I noticed he carried himself differently. He stood taller. He looked people in the eye. Eventually, that 9-month program came to an end. I did not know what became of Bob after that. Many years later, I was at a conference. During a break in a large atrium with a couple hundred other people, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned and saw a man I did not immediately recognize. He smiled and said, "You're the reason I'm here." As I tried to place him, he said, "It's me, Bob. You helped change the whole course of my life." Looking back at that chance meeting, I'm reminded of something I've learned over the years. We don't need anyone to fix us. What we need is someone to hold up a different mirror, one that reflects our true worth until we can see it for ourselves. Bob's life changed when he saw himself differently, and that's how change started for me too. My turning point started that day in front of the mirror. Those words, "enough, enough now," were only the beginning. But change was harder than I expected. I started meeting with a counselor and working with him. One day he leaned in and said, "What if parts of your story aren't even true?" I felt like that question punched me in the stomach, and I got very angry. It felt like he was dismissing everything I had experienced in life. But over time, I began to see it. That story I was carrying around, it wasn't protecting me. It was holding me back. If I believed I'm unlovable, then I wouldn't have to take any risks and possibly be rejected. If I believed I'm not enough, well, then I wouldn't have to expect much from life. Around the same time, a mentor asked me a question that I'll never forget. He said, "If I were to hire a detective to investigate this story you believe about yourself, how much evidence would they actually find?" In that moment, I figured that he and my counselor might be in cahoots. But I couldn't shake that detective part. So I tried it. I began investigating my own story, not to pretend it didn't happen, not to erase it, but to figure out what was fact and what was fiction. So since that day, I wear a detective hat every day. It helps me catch that old "I am not enough" story. When it shows up, I pause, I investigate what triggered it, separate fact from fiction, and remind myself what I now know to be true. I am lovable. I decide my worth. That kind of change doesn't happen all at once. It took a lot of work. And as I began making decisions based on three things that are very important to me, my life began to change. And those things are relationships, service, and purpose. Changed the whole course of my life. In my early 40s, I quit my job, sold my house, rejoined the military, and signed up to attend seminary. And a friend of 10 years started to see me differently, and I saw him differently too. And next month, we'll celebrate our 13th wedding anniversary. The image in the mirror did not change, but how I saw myself did, and that changed everything. Why is change so hard? I've talked to many people over the years who've wrestled with that same question, and others like it. Do I matter? Am I enough? I've learned this. True lasting change doesn't come just from trying harder. It comes when we start to believe we're worth that change. I have lived this firsthand. I have changed jobs, I've read a lot of self-help books, and tried to change in all kinds of ways. But nothing took hold until I started to see myself differently. Turns out there's science behind all this. Psychologists call it narrative identity. It's the internal story we tell ourselves that's based on our life experiences. And we unconsciously look for whatever supports that story. That's called confirmation bias. Remember Bob? His internal story told him he's unworthy. That's narrative identity. And his confirmation bias kept taking in whatever supported his story and blocking out what didn't. And that's what kept him stuck in that revolving prison door until he looked into a different mirror. Bob and I have something in common. Our stories show that we do not live beyond the way we see ourselves. Seeing yourself differently changes everything. So what story do you tell yourself when you look in your own mirror? Whether it's a physical mirror or not. Run it through the detective test. What's fact? What's fiction? Or like Bob, ask someone that you trust to tell you what they see in you. Or like me, sit down with a counselor who will help you rewrite that old story. The path of change is different for everyone. But please hear me. No matter where you are in life, no matter what's happening today, know your worth. You can look in your own mirror today and say, enough, enough now. There is a lot more living to be done. I implore you, find that mirror that reflects your true worth. Do whatever it takes. The mirror is in your hands now. Thank you. Thank you.